All right, guys, so I've had this blank sitting in my shop staring at me for a few months now at this point. I made it on one of the patron live stream hangouts, and basically I had a bunch of pine cones left over from other things. They were kind of things that I didn't really want to use for my pen blanks that I sell, just random pine cones, and I just slapped a 6-inch PVC pipe chock full of pine cones and poured some resin on it. So I'm pretty excited, and we're going to be making a lamp project out of this. But the first step is we need to cut this. The mold that I use, the cap for the 6-inch PVC pipe, leaves an indentation, like a kind of a concave on the bottom. And then obviously we got some problems that need to be cut off on the top. Now the problem is round blanks like this, especially 6-inch diameter, large ones, they're kind of difficult to cut. There's no good machine. The bandsaw is the best option, but even on a bandsaw, round things you can get some kickback. If there's like a catch or anything like that, it can kind of move around on you. And so I finally decided to look around, see if there was something that could help me cut big round things on the bandsaw. And I found this Carter miter mill. And so hopefully it will work. It's got a bunch of, really sharp spines. I think it should hold this thing in place. Either way, it's way better than any other option that I have, especially just trying to hold this thing and cut it, on a bandsaw. Now, I think you could probably make something very similar. The problem is I really didn't have time to design it and then make it. So for about 80 bucks, maybe 90, something like that, this was a great option for me. So let's go and see how this thing works. Let's get this thing flattened. And then after that, I need to glue a glue block on the bottom. That way I'm not gonna waste any of the material from the blank. We'll just put a waste glue block of wood. So I'm pretty excited. Let's head over to the bandsaw and see how this little miter mill works. Well, all right, that thing worked really well. It did exactly what I wanted. I did end up having to take a couple cuts. I kind of misjudged the first ones, but very good cut. I did have the bandsaw tuned up pretty well, brand new blade, so those things also kind of helped out. But the little sled held this thing in place, so regardless of how the bandsaw was set up, the miter sled did its job. And it also kind of gave me some other ideas when I was cutting this, and I looked at the cutoffs. I was thinking, you could maybe, cast a pipe and then cut out coasters, or maybe, even with this kind of bigger blank, maybe cut out some bowl blanks out of a larger, PVC pipe casting. Lots of ideas. I think for me, money well spent. I think it was about 90 bucks. I bought it from Rockler. But you could make something like that pretty simple, I think. Just, takes a little bit of time. I didn't really want to put the time and effort into thinking about how to get exactly what I wanted out of it. That thing does everything that I needed. So with that done, let's glue our glue block on. I'm just going to use some 5-minute epoxy, let it sit overnight, and then it's time to mount it on the lathe, get a tenon on the glue block, and then chuck it up and start making some shavings. All right, so I got it sanded to 600 grit. It is looking pretty sweet. I love the shaping. I'm very happy with that. The colors are cool. The pine cones, everything's good to go. So time to start hollowing this thing out. Now, for this project and for other things down the road, I decided to buy a steady rest. And you can make these. There's tons of different types on the market, but I decided to go with the Carter. It was a pretty reasonably priced one compared to some of the others, and looks like it has some pretty cool functionality. I don't think that it's totally necessary for this, but I do think that the added support is going to be really nice. The pine cones in this are really going to kind of weaken the entire piece. There are a lot of pine cones in this, and they just are kind of more brittle and all that kind of stuff. So what I've found, even on shorter, skinnier pieces that I'm hollowing, resin tends to kind of chatter a little bit more and vibrate. So I think that the added stability hopefully will make things go a little bit easier. I'm going to start out with the #1 hollower. I really love using this tool to hollow out, but it is limited. The maximum distance that you can, like the overhang over your tool rest, is about right here, which is going to only get me about halfway through this. So I also have the Trent Bosch hollowing system. I just bought that not too long ago. It's been on my list for a long time. That thing is just rock solid. It's going to give me the length, the depth that I need to get in there, and it's going to be rock solid. Again, I'm trying to make things, stack all the cards in my favor so that this thing doesn't come apart when I'm hollowing it out. Now, I don't plan to go super thin or anything like that. I don't really actually want it to be super thin walled. I think that's going to make the colors kind of disappear a little bit. Mica powders, if you don't put a ton of mica powder in and you end up with a really thin piece, it tends to make it, like you lose your color saturation pretty easy. So I want to make sure that I keep the color looking good and also keep this thing a little bit on the safe side. I want to make sure that I get through it. So let's get the steady rest hooked up and then start making some shavings on this thing. All right, so I got through all the sanding. I really took my time with it and, went through each grit, made sure that everything was good to go, wiped off in between each grit with denatured alcohol. And now we have 800 scratch pattern on here, and I think it was 600 or 800 on the inside. So we're good to go. I'm going to go with Amazing Clear Cast Plus again. I'm just going to apply it, put on a reasonable coat. But thin, fairly thin, but reasonable. And then I'm really going to take my time and make sure that I have my light shining on this thing and inspect everything really well to make sure that I don't have any air bubbles or anything. I'm going to hit it with the torch and then just let it slow spin using that rotisserie motor setup. I'm going to do both the outside and the inside. So I'm going to do the inside first on this. That just makes sense. And then once that's done, come back and do the outside and we'll get the whole thing coated. So let's get some resin mixed up. I'm going to cover everything up so I don't make a mess on my lathe, and we'll apply our finish. All right, guys, so all I can say is, wow, this thing is looking amazing. I really do love the look of putting just a finish coat on top of these projects. Nothing, no other method of polishing, buffing, finishes comes close to the kind of the clarity, the gloss, the just pop, that I'm looking at on these. You turn the light on, start looking at it, and it just is amazing looking. So very happy with the results. Now, upon inspection, if I get up here and look at it, there's a couple of, flaws that happen. It's really difficult. You're putting on a finish that's going to be, kind of tacky for hours pretty much. And there's no good way to get around this, but dust nibs are going to get in there. You might get a couple little air bubbles. One of the problems that I had with this is I put this on at the end of the day and just went home. So I couldn't even pop in and check on this, make sure everything was going okay. I'm looking at this. I got a couple little sags, which that totally could have been avoided, I think, had I been in the shop and could have monitored this. But, the thing is, overall, it looks like 95% absolutely flawless. So I just don't really think I'm willing to go in. I'd have to turn off the little sag areas and basically refinish this, maybe even have to sand it again. But first I'd have to actually wait days for this to harden up more before I'd really want to start doing that. So I'm pretty happy with this. Like I said, it really looks, it's eye-opening. It makes me stop and go, wow. Now the inside, not as good. It's really hard to get, a coating on there that deep, and I think it almost would probably be easier to just dump some epoxy in and just kind of work it around rather than this kind of sideways thing for something that's kind of deep like this. But I did get the neck and everything. It looks like pretty much flawless, I think. So anyway, like I said, I'm going to push forward. I don't really want to spend the time, and I don't think it's worth messing with fixing some of these little flaws. So I'm going to part it off. The heater just went on. I'm going to part this guy off, and then we just need to work on the base. So let's get on it. Now the next step is the base, and what I'm going to use for the base is a piece of red mallee burl. It's just a slice of it, and basically we're just going to drill a hole. I'm going to be using an LED light. This is battery operated wireless control, so you just basically drill a 2.5-inch hole, pop it in there, and you're pretty much done. The other thing that I need to do with the base, obviously just put a little bit of finish on, clean it up, sand it. I've already run it through the drum sander to flatten the base so it's stable, and I'm gonna run it through the drum sander a couple more times to clean up these saw marks, and then just random orbit sand the top up to 600 grit. And then we're gonna mount it on the lathe, like I said, drill a hole for the LED light. And then what I'm going to do is just with the tool come in and get something that'll, you know, fit this base. So it'll just basically, you know, drill a kind of a shallow hole that'll fit the base so it'll just sit on there. I don't want to glue it or do anything because we need to access this to replace batteries and stuff. So a couple things, it shouldn't take that long, and then after everything's done with this, all the, you know, turning and drilling, then I'm just going to apply probably just some Howard's Feed and Wax. I'm really liking that, just a little bit of oil and some wax, and we're done. So let's get this thing sanded up and get it on the lathe. All right, I got it all finished up, and man, I love that project. It turned out really awesome. It was so fun to work on, using lots of different things. You know, I got to use that steady rest. That was the first time I've used that. It worked absolutely perfect. I got to use the Trent Bosch hollowing system. I love that. That's awesome. And I got to use the slow turning motor. That worked out fabulously for putting on the finish. I love doing the finish. That was actually, I don't do that very often. I've only done it a few times, and the slow turning motor made that really easy. I really love the look of epoxy finishes, and the ACC Plus offers you some of that UV protection over top of something like a Lumelite Clear Slow Set, which doesn't have any UV inhibitors in it. So it's a good kind of option for that type of thing. Now, before we go, I want to thank my newest top-level patron over on Patreon, Joel Conkey. He actually won we just had a little giveaway thing. He was a brand new patron, and he won the blank giveaway that we did in conjunction with the 50 subscriber giveaway. So congratulations on that, Joel, and thank you for your support. And if you'd like to help support the show over on Patreon, you can do so at patreon.com/nvwoodworks. So I guess that's about it. If this is your first time on my channel, we do all kinds of resin casting projects, tips and tricks, and experiments around here. So if you're interested in those types of videos and content and how-tos, definitely hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you get notified when new videos get posted, as well as when I do live streams. And if you're new to resin casting and you want a little bit of a guide on how to get started, check out my ebook, The Beginner's Guide to Resin Casting. It answers all those beginner questions like, what resin should I use? What do I need to get started? How does it all work? It kind of gives you a broad overview of what's going on with resin casting. How does it work? What's involved? What can you do with it? And all that kind of good stuff. So it's a great thing for people that are brand new to resin casting in general. You don't have to be a turner or any specific thing. It just answers questions about how resins work. There's lots of uses. So if you're interested in that, definitely check it out over on my website. It's available now. So until next time, guys, thanks for watching this video, and happy casting.